All right, welcome. I'm so happy that you're here. This is wonderful. This is like never before. We are gaining momentum and really embracing clarity in the process. It's a little bit of a messy process, who we have to admit, but we're doing it and you're doing it. And I congratulate and celebrate you. Keep on going. You are definitely on the right track and you're not alone. We are in this together. So this has been a wonderful journey so far. And I really hope and wish that we keep going, because otherwise, what is the alternative? Who can tell me? Let me know now in the chat. What is the alternative to stopping the momentum that we're having? Just like going back to our whatever we were doing. What is the alternative? The alternative, my friends, would be the motions, would be sameness, would be degradation. Because if you're not progressing, you're degrading. If you don't have a vision forward, you're perishing. So what we have come to learn at this point in the process is that hope is sustained. It's an exercise. It's a muscle. It's a daily choice. Because definitely everything wishes and fights against your hope and mine, right? Let me know in the chat if this year your hope was scattered because of the emotions, the events, the circumstances, your life. Hasn't it reached like a point of overwhelm? It definitely did for many of us, and I truly wish that you overcome your limitations regarding what has happened, because what has happened is actually real. We're not going to say it didn't happen. We're not going to say it didn't have an impact on you. We're not going to deny the scars and the struggle. So what we have been doing so far is to unite around common ground and visions for each other, not just for ourselves. How many of you, let me know in the chat, how many of you have gained incredible momentum and progress just by having brainstormed and given your opinion, and you have voiced it out, and you have prepared the way for a full level of self-expression, right? So many of you, and we have witnessed it in actual real time. So if we keep going, what does it look like for you? Let me know again in the chat. What does it look like for you from here on? Because if you're part of one vision and it's shared by others, how exponential has it been so far, because you are sharing that vision with others? It's incredible. It's exponential. It's not just incremental. I really wish for everybody, every single person who has a vision and a plan and a dream and an objective, to reach it by himself. I really wish that for him and her. But how many of you, let me know in the chat, how many of you have been able to sustain a vision by themselves in the past 2 or 3 years? A project, a dream, and you were like all alone at it every single day? Not a lot. Perhaps maybe none. Because your vision has not taken off yet. It didn't manifest. You didn't work at it properly. Maybe you dabbled, maybe you tried, but it wasn't sustained. Why? Because it wasn't shared. Not just shared in the sense like made public, shared in the sense of convergence, of having other people believing and living the same things as you. So in that process, basically, you have gained not only momentum, traction, and clarity around what you actually really wanted to gain from this exercise, and personal growth. You remember, like personal development was not a bonus, it was a prerequisite. You being coachable and willing to is 50%, 51% of the work. How many of you relate? Because you see it around you, people who have not made the decision of being aware, of starting the work, of doing the hard, tough decisions about the current state of their either character or the quality of their lives, because of something they do not want to gain awareness around. And I'll get you the exact statistic about that, but let's estimate that 90 to 95% of the people who are suffering today because of a conflict, because of something that happened, an event, they actually, 90 to 95% of the people, 9 people out of 10, they would prefer remaining in suffering than fixing the thing, than recognizing what they would have to gain awareness around, let alone work at it, let alone change it, let alone acknowledging that it is going to be worked on. I'm saying just to gain the awareness, just to say, yes, I want to, in my mind, look at myself and be like, yes, that's what's happening. Instead of developing all those coping mechanisms, or where we actually either justify or like build a narrative or work our way around it in our own minds. And then it has like a serious impact, because you act upon what you end up believing, not just about yourself, right? But about situations and people. So I celebrate you and congratulate you for coming this far into growing into awareness, growing into self-realization. Because realization, remember, we're all about high definitions, but realization is both to realize yourself in a sense of like self-actualization and fulfillment, like realize yourself, self-realization. But it's also the real meaning of realization. It's like, I realized something, like self-realize yourself in that sense. So you could self-actualize yourself in the other sense of realization. I know you're getting what I'm saying, because you're high, not just performers and achievers, but highly aware individuals. And I celebrate you for that right now, because we often, as highly awakened and aware and conscious, we often take that for granted, and we also suffer in silence from the lack of awareness around us, right? How many of you in the past 2 years, 3 years, have suffered so much from people's unawareness, people's unconsciousness, people's unwillingness to come to the light? I asked you, and I'm asking you again, so you could sense and seize the consequences of not taking a stance for your consciousness, because the world is growing more and more into oblivion. Listen, it's all about our perceptions and what we want to focus on, right? But the doom and gloom, you know why it's real? You know why it's tangible? You know why it's predictable? And our hope is injured because of that. Our aspirations are distorted because of the doom and gloom. Why? Because it's predictable based on the level of unawareness that is still ongoing after 2 years, 3 years of deep visceral crisis in households, in people's lives. People are still, we are as a species still very inclined to unconsciousness and unawareness. And it's such a mystery because for us it's it's painful, right? How many agree? Like, so painful to predict the doom and gloom. But it's the hard acceptance, actually. It's not like the hard conclusion. It's the acceptance that behind the unfailing hope that we will actually persevere into and remain steadfast into, because it's anchored in the source of hope. Despite that, the source of hope itself reminds us that it's an actual light, like a light of a candle lit in a spaciousness of darkness. I think time, especially like the next 5 to 10 years, will only remind us of how delicate the light is, like a candle flame, basically, because it's fire, it's sustained. You see, the only difference between your light in like a spiritual sense and the sun, which is light, right? Very bright. The sun fuels on perpetual fuel for fire, whatever it is. Those chemicals burning are like good for like 3 million, I don't know how many years, right? There's so much fuel in there. It's burning. Whereas a candle and a human life is on a much smaller scale of resilience and existence, right? A candle is wax and it's quantified. A human being is flesh and it's quantified. It lasts for about 100 years, let alone the 1,000 years that the maybe used to last before the creator decides to shorten our lifetime because of how we were using our time. That's another story for another day, but inspired by the same spirit of convergence. Sharing this because times are dimming. That's a good word. Times are dimming. The light is like resembling the light of sunset a little bit more than, you know. And when I say this, and I know that you guys understand, my people, you understand that when I say this, it's because we have sensed how consuming the darkness could get for our own existence. We have experienced how real is heaviness of gravity and of our time and our condition and our more, our existence. We have experienced it in such a compressed way, especially in the last 3 years. But I know that many of you relate that it's been ongoing for more than 3 years now, at least 2 decades of going down. And the final countdown has started. So we're approaching full darkness. I'm sorry to say, before the actual sunrise, before the day. But I'm saying this because you understand just as much as I do that as much as it was heavy in the past 3 years, and for us, in the past 20 years, but especially in the past 3 years, as much as it's been heavy, that's the sunset. That's just people, humanity starting to realize that it's not going to be a perpetual party from here on, as much as they thought it would. And that took 3 years for them to kind of live that denial, because in the two sides of resilience is that we as a species are resilient in survival, doing everything it takes to survive, but we're also extremely resilient in denial, in wanting, just like on the Titanic, right? Just wanting to continue the chilling, continue the living, continue the good life, the meal, the party. So when the party seems to be over, how many of you relate? I know, write it down in the chat. How many of you relate? The party's over and we still want to keep partying, right? It's not everybody's going home and says, oh, okay, it's time to go home. It's time to cozy up. It's time to rest. No. As a species, we want to keep going for our own enjoyment, not for our survival, for our own enjoyment. Yeah, maybe for our survival in our instinct and in our subconscious, we know that we are called to survive as before even aspiring to thrive. But the last 3 years have shown us that surviving, okay, let me say that. Thriving in the midst of surviving is still a very strong instinct in the 21st century. In the sense that as much as we are resilient in our survival instincts, we are being extremely resilient in our desire to keep enjoying this thing before it really ends. And that, as a consequence, creates a lot of short-minded, driven individuals. So we are collectively not only driven by crisis and fear, but we're all driven by our short-term enjoyment and survival, but still enjoyment. Now, listen, I'm not here to be the enemy of enjoyment. And there's no solution that includes the eradication of enjoying life. We're not in the Marshall Plan. We're not in communist, soulless rhetorics. We are much more in a call to converging, right? Coming together in the understanding that this is part of the problem. The short-term, persistence to enjoy life on our own terms, the way we have been accustomed to, in the midst of a very strong dopamine depletion all over the world. We just want more and more and more and more to have like the same enjoyment feeling, rush of adrenaline. So as we are demanding more, and that's like our real greed is not just in terms of money, it's like the greed of the hustle, then we have predictable results. We have predictable outcomes. We have predictable conclusions. So that's why we here in this collective, we are definitely all about looking at reality in the face, knowing what we know. If you know, you know. Like, this is the nature of reality. This is what's happening. This is what's really going on. So I want to congratulate you for taking this step. Let me know in the chat if you have ever thought, okay, let me put this way. Let me know in the chat if you have ever thought of not only going strong on your own vision, but having the desire, like the strong desire, like the sincere desire to be courageously selfless and commit, be willing and committing to submit your vision not only for approval, but submit your vision for complete surrender. It's a very bold move. It's a very strong call, and I want you to think about it before fully seizing what I'm saying. I want you to take your vision, now that we have journeyed 4 months into clarifying it. Was it 4 months or 4 weeks? I don't. But now that we have clarified it, are we willing to submit it? Are we willing to bring it to the altar? Are we willing to say, I do not mind if it doesn't come to life? I want to hear you make such a bold statement. And if you make such a bold statement, and I haven't even explained yet what it means to truly surrender your vision to not only deconstruction, but sincere questioning, not just for approval, but for sincere proving. Really put it to the test, really submit it to your peers and ask them, what should I let go of? What should I simplify? What should I submit to the Holy One, and detach from the outcome, detach from the result and the success and the vision itself, detach from it. Find back your sense of wholeness without the imperative to protecting your vision. That's only possible because we're in a safe space. It's not possible to do that. I would never, ever advise you to do that to your friends or family or non-understanding individuals, to kind of like be as broad as possible. Just people who want to give you their opinion about your vision. You don't need their opinion, nor their validation, nor their insight before you actually protect that vision within the collective. But I'm saying, and with your peers, but I'm saying in the process of securing that vision with your peers and working it out and making it into something amazing. In that process comes that courageous and bold step of submitting your vision to your peers and to the altar of the Holy of Holies, to formulate it in a romantic, reverent way. Just submit it to the source of that vision. If you don't want to talk about God, the good old God, my man God. So funny how Zoom wrote this. The good old GOP, my man GEOD. How did you get this? But anyways, thank you for technology. I am definitely going to conclude this one. This session we've been over like 7 minutes, but it's okay. You could definitely watch the replay and make sure that whatever I said, and I said it regarding your vision earlier, and I want you to think about it. Say it, do it, and then think about what it actually involves. I want you to meditate on what it actually involves. Once reflect and meditate, once your vision is clear and you're excited because that's your assignment, because you have a safe space, how much are you willing to let go of that vision? How much are you willing to let go of your expectations of the results and the outcome and your role in the vision and how it's really supposed to unfold and how it's going to happen? And despite having a plan, despite having extreme clarity and motivation, and like we're all pumped up for your vision. I mean, I'm all about it. I'm all about you and your success, but listen, I want you to come back to the essential, which is not just your person and your being, and like Eckhart Tolle stuff, like your essence and your divine nature and it's not just like fluffy woo. It's pragmatic and real. You remember what I told you earlier about like the realness of the realms? Yeah. Well, I want you inside your vision to be as real as you're courageous enough to go. I want you to develop the courage and the safety to feel that you can let go of your vision, and that your sense of identity and your sense of worth and your sense of true nature and purpose is in fact detached from the outcome of your vision, or the shape and form that your vision is taking inside your spirit and mind. And then you start like incarnating what you believe in to be true inside your mind and heart and soul. But the purpose of this exercise is to realize that building up on your vision is also actually building up on your ego and on your ego form, like, again, not to be fluffy on Eckhart Tolle, but the form that you're taking, the ego conception of your personality and your identity, the construction, at the core of our convictions is to gain awareness. And awareness is recognizing the ego as it takes shape. And having a vision and a sense of purpose builds an identity that has to be watched and safeguarded. And that's the purpose of the exercise, okay? Let me know in the chat if you're thrilled about feeling safe and letting go. It's very, 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 very much like trusting the parachute, like trusting the whole thing, like trusting your courage, trusting the process, trusting that the outcome you're going to land, even if you let go. It's building your trust like never before. And also, what's beautiful is, let's put it this way, in the same analogy, when you jump from the parachute and you want that thrilling experience of a lifetime, having jumped from a parachute, but you don't know exactly how it's going to happen. But you know that once you have landed, you just had the experience of your lifetime, jumping from a plane and landing with a parachute. You want that outcome, the feeling of a lifetime, the experience, the memory, once you have landed. But you don't know how it's going to happen. You don't know how it operates. You're trusting. You're taking a huge risk for what you really want. You know the result. It looks like landing on safe ground and feeling like, oh my God. But since you don't know exactly how it's going to happen and it's risky, most people don't do it. The majority of people, the great majority of people, don't take such a risk with their lives, with, who they are building up to be, their identity. They don't let go of it because they might want the other side of it. Like, I want to have the thrilling experience of a fulfilling life based on a higher standards for myself. I want that. I know that's how it looks like when I land from the plane, but I'm never going to take the risk of like dealing with my life, gambling with my very existence but they miss out on the experience of a lifetime. Same thing, and I'm gonna reframe that analogy for you eventually, because I kind of just came up with it, but it's nice. It's very gives like a clear picture of what I'm trying to say. It's you letting go of your vision is you knowing that once you land from this process, it's the most fulfilling leap of faith you will ever take, because it's freeing. It's you offering out of yourself, offering the best of yourself, but taking it out of yourself, throwing it in the void, saying, I'm okay if I don't, but I know that until then, who I am is not gonna, the essence of who I am, to go back to the essence of what I'm saying, the essence of who I am is not going to change. I trust the process. I trust that my identity is not in what I envision. And the most beautiful part of that process is that you're offering the most precious thing that you might have. Like your vision, for many of us, write it in the chat. Let me know if your vision, and if you're a visionary and you're here, it's kind of the case already, but your vision is like more precious than your own life. Like you won't hold on to your dear life, eating and drinking and surviving, as much as you're holding on to what you know is your truest calling and your truest mission and your truest purpose and your truest nature. You know it. And you are dedicated to manifest it, bring it to life. So if it's the case, right? It's the case. So I congratulate and celebrate you for that. We are going to conclude this session. We are coming to a good 50 minutes of reminding ourselves that clarity, awareness, definition, passion are extremely important in your sense of purpose and drive and where you're going from here. Extremely important. But your sense of identity, your truest essence and nature is not in this thing. And it took me the hard way to learn it, when the vision itself was not materializing, it was not coming to life, it was not real. And I had to go back to the reality. And the reality, especially if you're of a spiritual nature, the reality is much more beyond, different than what we could sense. Okay, so I'm so glad you were here. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll see you on Thursday, and don't forget, the destination is wonderful. It's landing on solid ground and having the experience of your lifetime. But on your way there, connect with your essence truly and fully and go back to it. I'm not just saying like, yeah, okay, my essence is important. I'm saying reconnect with your intimacy with your essence. Again and again, as much as it takes. It's a fitness process. Emotional and spiritual fitness is a real thing. So keep going, my friends. I'll see you Thursday. And I love you so much. Get in touch if you have any questions, and make sure that you speak to your partner, your teammate, and tell them, what are you currently willing to let go of? Until then,